Okay, we're in English.
How's the week, everybody?
It
It was
was
horrible, as usual.
no, well, we had a very exciting week. We finished painting all the furniture that goes into our bedroom, and the painting took place in the second bedroom, which means that now that the painting there of the furniture is over, we can finally get around to finishing painting the second bedroom, followed very closely by putting a carpet down and skirting boards and window sills. And in 2 weeks or so, we hope to finish. So, very exciting progress.
Wait, how long
Okay.
has this whole process been?
Since COVID,
Finishing
since
and painting?
2000, sorry, since 2020, so about 6 years now.
Oh, 6 years the charm.
6 years. Oh, we're losing you, Bar.
What's that?
We're losing you. You're soft again.
We went to 25. Sorry, back at 30.
Excellent. Yes. No. So we've been
Um,
renovating for 6 years now.
Exciting.
right, but what does that? Did you paint the walls? What do you mean paint the furniture?
No, no furniture. So we have a set of drawers, two sets of drawers and a table. One of them was IKEA. One of them I'm not sure where. And Fiona just repainted all of them in a new with a new paint. But that's a whole process because it involves sanding and then painting and then sanding
Right, and
again
then lacquer, I
and
guess.
filling
Yeah.
and so on.
Okay,
And Fiona is a perfectionist, so it took forever, but now it's done.
that's fair. At least it's looks good,
Oh,
right?
it will look great. One day when we're finished, one day hopefully fairly soon, I'll do a whole like video tour of the house, and
Did you take like before
of course
pictures?
not. I never
Uh,
remember to take it. No, we have some before. We have some pictures from when I um, the renovation was very, very comprehensive. So we basically demolished the house, the walls, the floor, everything was demolished. So I have some fun photos of me demolishing things. That's there. But what I don't have is a comprehensive photos of the house as it was before. I wish I did. That would have been really nice.
yeah, maybe remember for the furniture of the bedroom number two.
Yeah,
Uh,
next house, you'll get it done.
next house we will take we will take a good tour just as I arrive, and then yeah, and then whatever does. But Fiona swears that she's never renovating again. So we'll see
Right.
about that. I think after we finish the previous house, she also swore that she's not going to renovate again.
I
So I'm
think
not quite sure.
women have this thing where there is like a forgetting hormone that's. Sorry, one moment.
The homemaking hormone. Yeah.
I was going to say after they give birth, they have
Oh.
this hormone
Oh, right.
produced that
Yes.
makes them forget how painful it was.
Absolutely, and luckily,
Oh.
because otherwise the humanity wouldn't have survived.
Exactly.
Right, right. Um, Bar, you moved, so I hear.
Yes, I have, but I'm still paying rent for the old place, so no big changes.
Lost you there in in the middle.
Still,
We should get you a
I said
microphone.
I'm still paying rent for the old place. Uh, what's happening here is a software issue, which I'm sure I could fix if I wasn't busy right now.
Busy, yes.
Oh.
By the way, this
Oh wow,
is like a typical before picture.
is that
Everything
Iran?
is mid, everything mid demolition.
That's Gaza, I think.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's quite the baseline.
That's
Project.
quite,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Relative to that, I'll see if I can find an after picture of the kitchen at some point. The kitchen actually looks very good. The public rooms are done and look good. It's the bedrooms that we're working on next. But we are going to Turkey. Um, we're going to Turkey in like second week of August or the third week of August.
Dad, I
And
told you, you look fine without hair. You don't need it.
Oh, come on. There's always room for improvement. Anyway, so we're going to Turkey, and so we'll have staff members stay in the house in our stead, because somebody has to be here at all times, which means that. Oh, I'll share this one. This is a fun one. So this is me trying to make the.
Is that like the? Did you buy the pants like that?
Well worn. So we so the house needs to be finished enough for for us to be able to bring in staff members, which again with Fiona is a fairly high standard. So that's
Right.
the deadline. That's what we're striving for.
Okay.
Okay.
Exciting.
Right.
Okay.
And what about you guys? How is the business going?
We're gonna try and add new menu items.
Okay.
So we're probably gonna add sabich,
Okay.
if you know it.
Oh, good. Yes.
We're not.
Love it.
we're
Okay,
not
okay.
big
I wasn't sure.
eggplant people around here.
I mean, two of my most favorite foods are eggplants and hard-boiled eggs. So yes, I'm definitely.
I remember as a
Sabich.
child you telling me how. One moment. Sorry. I remember as a child you telling me that you you don't like eggplants, and how if someone offered you eggplants, unless they said specifically that it doesn't really taste like eggplants, you would refuse.
Your
Was-
memory is faulty. I'm not sure what it was, but it doesn't sound like me because I absolutely love eggplants in various forms. So interesting how that happened.
I used to not like eggplants, especially I don't remember know if you remember that, but we went to dinner at Grandma's house,
Uh,
and you made each of us try like one or two, three new food items on the table.
right.
And one of the things I chose was this eggplant tomato salad,
Right.
which I believe is like Elah's favorite or something.
Uh-huh.
Anyways, so I tried that, and the texture made me gag, and I went to the bathroom to throw up.
I know the egg salad. That's what it does.
That's what it does.
Yeah.
Oh well. No, I'm sure your sabich will be a lot better. So you still mainly appealing to the local Israeli population?
Mostly, yeah.
Even if they're not appealing to the Israeli population, I think that it's fair that their strength would be Israeli food.
Oh yeah,
So-
absolutely, absolutely.
Yes, it's just a matter of how do you get the word out and like what kind of cuisine appeals to what clientele. So like Americans wouldn't know what jachnun is.
No, I mean
But until they find out what it is.
the root
and then
is
they'll like
obviously Israelis, then Jews, then other Americans. That's how you spread the word, and you're at the first
Right.
phase.
Also, I
Right.
don't know
Israeli.
how popular this opinion is, but I'm pretty sure that Israeli food is really good.
Well, I guess a lot of people would refuse to characterize it as Israeli food, and would instead say,
Here
well,
it's
you
called
have
occupation.
Yemeni food, Palestinian food, Moroccan food, and Polish.
Middle Eastern even, if you want to be
yes.
vague about it.
Right, and some Polish food. But anyway,
Yeah. A schnitzel in a baguette is definitely Israeli. No one else is claiming it.
uh, it's
It's-
quite possibly. I'm trying to think. In Vietnam, they do a lot of foods in baguette, but you might be right that
Yes.
schnitzel is not one of them.
Yeah, because of the occupation, the French. But actually, that is, I was just thinking about it today, the concept of how, well, one of the topic I wanted to discuss this week was the evolutionary strategy of each religion.
Right.
So,
By the way, can I add one thing to the food conversation? So sabich is a uniquely Israeli dish, meaning it wasn't made in Iraq or wherever. It was actually made in a shop in Israel.
Nice.
They took a bunch of stuff from a Shabbat breakfast that's traditional to Iraqi Jews, and they put it in a pita, and we have sabich, which is uniquely Israeli.
Nice.
But yeah, go ahead.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
And the name,
And so because,
where does the name sabich come from? What does it mean? Do
Isn't
you
it a
know?
ראשי תיבות? Isn't it what's it called in English? ראשי תיבות.
Acronym.
Acronym.
Salat, Betza, something
Chatzil.
Chatzil.
Ah, okay. Now I know. Okay, I learned something new. Thank you.
Right, right. And Israelis love acronyms. I really hate it because there's an acronym for everything, and I don't know any of them.
Yes, mostly coming from the army.
Right.
Right.
Which is what I told you.
Yeah, yeah. So what I was gonna say was so part of the Jewish thing, it kind of developed this way unintentionally because we're ruthless cosmopolitans. We I read this Thomas Sowell book, Race and Culture.
Yes.
One of his best books in my
Excellent
opinion.
book, yes.
And one of the takeaways I got from that book was the best cultures, like Japan, for instance, are a good one. The Americans also do this. Are the cultures that are willing to take good things that they see from other cultures and adapt them into their own. So this whole Jews being everywhere and picking up the cultures of the wherever they are, and then the mishmash of cultures that happen to take place when Jews come all together in Israel, makes a interesting development. Of course, we did this badly with the government structure because we took it from Russia. So that was a huge, huge mistake that pretty much destroyed any. Well, imagine how developed Israel could have been if we took our government structure from the U.S. instead of from Russia.
Originally. Yeah, so we kind of wasted like 50 years or whatever on socialism before waking up.
50?
Right.
Right.
Took a long time.
I don't know, from
Yeah.
1948 till 1998. I don't know, when did Israel start
Until
flourishing? Maybe
Begin.
40 years.
Begging in the 80s, yeah.
Begin in the 80s? Fair enough. So 40 years maybe.
Regarding the Japanese adapting themselves to the other cultures, I think that's why Hitler gave them they were called cultural replicators in race science or something like that.
Cultural what?
Cultural replicators. There are culture creators, the
Oh.
Aryans. There are culture replicators, like the Japanese, for instance, and there are culture destroyers, like the Jews.
Interesting.
okay.
I did not know that.
That's really cool. It's appropriate for them. I heard they recently figured out that they could do what they did with everything else, which is to say, take something like trains and then become the best in the world at that. And so they decided they can do that with soccer as well. And so they got a really big markup in their soccer game recently.
Not that they did well in the World Cup, to my knowledge, but I'm sure there's a lot better than
They
this.
played well, but yeah, unfortunately they lost. I think they were against someone good. I don't remember who it was.
Right.
Can't remember.
Yeah, but they played very well. Yeah. Okay.
So,
Omer, you want to talk about?
Well, yeah, I'll give a little bit of an introduction just to kind of like set the stage. So, this is not going to be a conversation about if God is real or not. It's going to be specifically about how religion affects politics today, and specifically on the right, because leftists are godless, so they don't care about that.
They
but
have
we're
their own
talking about
religion,
right-wing-
but it doesn't have God.
yeah.
You're right.
Right. So when we're talking about right-leaning people, they care more about religion than the state
Yes.
generally.
Okay.
In Islam, it's both
So
the same
that's.
thing.
I'm
like
just
in
gonna set the
leftism.
stage. Sorry, go ahead, Bart.
I was saying that in Islam and in leftism, religion and the state is the same thing.
Oh, I mean, there are a lot of places where religion and the state are the same thing. The Vatican, for instance, and all of medieval Europe. But or maybe that's a bit too much. But they join forces very often. The complete separation is a relatively new innovation.
I'll give you that.
So basically, every time that we're gonna veer off the course, which the course is gonna be talking about how religion affects right-wing people today, I'm gonna bring us back to that.
Okay.
Is that cool with everybody?
Yep. I'm
Cool. So basically, my whole thesis, I guess, is that, and it's not just me, it's other people on the internet as well. It's that, especially in the US, religion kind of like took a back seat in the recent years, and now because it's coming back, I guess, to popularity, a lot of people are getting to know religion for the first time, and they don't have a lot of the basics. So they're basically hearing stuff from either Protestants, which are usually, they have less of the traditions, or Orthodox slash Catholic churches, which have a lot more of the tradition. And that's what a lot of the young generation is going for. They're going for the tradition. Now, a lot of the tradition is very anti-Jew, and that's why we see a lot of people on the right flipping on the Jews, we'll call it, and going against, obviously they're not going to say it in that way. They're going to say that they're flipping on Israel specifically. But it's very obvious that it's not just Israel or a specific prime minister.
So
Especially not a mild
that
one.
that so okay. So this is your thesis, and you'll have to persuade me at least, because I could agree with what you started saying, but I need to see evidence to agree with the rest.
Right. So I believe I sent you guys about 4 videos, 2 of Candace Owens, 2 of Tucker Carlson,
Yes,
and they're
and
both talking about.
I'm very upset with that. I'm very unhappy with what I had to see.
What made you unhappy?
Well, it made me watch Tucker and Candace for like it was like
Because I-
You can
almost an
delete the
hour.
history.
Don't you boycott them, Bar? Did you make an exception to a boycott in order to watch the videos?
That's part of what bothered me, that I had to give them the views.
Right.
It
So-
also screwed up my algorithm a little bit. It's a little annoying.
Right.
Oh, right. Yes, of course it would. So now you get more of them in your feed.
Yeah.
Right.
a
So
lot.
just to that point specifically, what I usually do, because I'm just like you, Bar, I don't like giving them views. I don't like to give them the popularity, and also I don't like to mess up my own algorithm. So what I usually do is I just erase it off of my YouTube history, and usually that does it. But I specifically try to send you guys links that are not linking to their channels, but other people's channels. But obviously they're very favorable to them.
Right.
Yeah, so basically, the 4 videos I sent are centering around religion. And if you'll hear any of those 2 people's podcasts, or even Nick Fuentes as an example, and then obviously they're just like the obvious symbols of this phenomenon. There's creators that are less popular that also have the same shtick. So because they're such big symbols of that kind of like phenomenon, I specifically gave them. And also, if you listen to their videos, they speak about religion way more than they speak about history, whatever, lobbying efforts, meaning current day politics in the US. They're speaking a lot more about theology than politics or anything else, history. They just have a very unfavorable view religiously about Jews. And we can get a little bit into that and into why. And I first want to hear your guys' thoughts about the videos I sent.
I think this might be true with respect to Candace. I'm not sure it's true about Tucker. So
I actually agree with that.
Yeah. So I think Candace is clearly not a fan of Jews, quote Jews, and that is a traditional, not just Catholic, right? It's a traditional Christian position as well, right? Jews have suffered in Protestant nations, in countries in Europe, and not just the Catholic ones. So I think the traditional Christian view is that Jews had the first opportunity to be saved by accepting Jesus. By virtue of the fact that they're still Jews means that they haven't, and therefore there's something wrong with them, really. At least theologically, there's something wrong with them. I think
I'd
the
like
view
to-
that
Sorry,
Yeah.
finish what your thought, and then I'll.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that the more tolerant, theologically tolerant view of Christians towards Jews, and that is true, and you can find that tolerance both with modern Catholics and with modern Protestants. Not all of them, but some of them is an innovation in the in the scheme of the last 2,000 years.
Okay, so I'll quickly respond to 2 points. So you said that technically Christians hate us because we rejected Jesus first. Now that's not really their
No, no,
point.
I didn't say hate. But anyway,
Right.
carry on.
That's the word I'm adding to it.
Wait,
They
Okay.
basically persecuted us
before
because
you
we
answer
rejected it.
write that down. Let me get back to that, because we spoke about this, about whether Jews are unique in their position or in anti-Jewish feelings, and the main point was no, they're just middleman minority. And what makes Jews different from other middleman minorities is this whole theological thing. How Jews are at the center of the theology of both major religions that discriminate against them.
Right. So that middleman minority, that's a more of a historical spin on why they don't like us. I'm gonna give the theological version of it, which is basically it's not just that Jews rejected Jesus when he came. That's not really the thing. The whole thing about the New Testament is the fact that we didn't reject Jesus, we actually killed him. So I think it's in Matthew 27, maybe 28. It actually says that. So obviously, Christ is persecuted, is brought before Pontius Pilate, and Pontius asks the crowd, "What did he do?" And they basically tell him about the idolatry, and he says, "Well, I don't wanna kill him," meaning he's not. I don't think he's guilty. And then the Jews scream, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" And he says, but I don't think he deserved it. I think he's innocent. And they basically say, we take his blood upon us and our children, which is generational, I guess. Yeah, it's a generational fault of ours. So when, just as an example, I didn't send it in this specific Tucker, in those specific Tucker videos, but Tucker specifically says that him and the church, actually, their whole innovation is that they rejected that generational fault. He has a specific phrase he uses. He calls it. What does he call it? I'm forgetting. But he basically he says that Christianity did away with that generational guilt, which is obviously not true. Just open up Matthew 27.
Like,
I'm also gonna.
original sin is like the big thing of Christianity.
Right. So it's not the original sin. In Judaism, we don't have original sin. That's them. That's Adam and Eve. But that's not the original sin that they're talking about. They're talking about he's calling it blood guilt, or meaning
Right.
we took his blood upon us and our children, and he says that actually Christianity did away with blood guilt.
Right. Well, let me introduce a comment here, right? This is true for all religions, right? It's most obviously to me true about Judaism, because I know Judaism better than any of the other religions, but I'm pretty sure it's true about all the other ones. The holy texts of each religion are very broad and very diverse, and they are being followed very selectively and inconsistently, right? So you can find something in Matthew's that says that. That doesn't mean that this is the voice of the entire New Testament, and it
Right.
definitely doesn't mean that it's the voice of Christianity, in the same way that you can find sections in the Hebrew Bible, in the proper Bible, that say many very different things, right? Murdering anybody who, killing anybody who works on the Sabbath, and yet
Right.
it has been superseded or ignored or interpreted away by subsequent
Right, so-
generations. So just because
Right.
it's
So
in
usually
Matthews
what you
doesn't
do.
mean it is Christian. What I'm saying is just because it's in Matthews doesn't automatically mean that Christians categorically
Follow
believe
it.
it.
Well,
Yeah.
I'd like
Right.
to
Right.
add that in the Tucker video, the first one that I watched, uh, the guy is specifically arguing against people who don't take the holistic view of the entire story. He's saying, yeah, I'm looking at the entire view of the story, and that's what it actually says. But I don't believe him.
Also, I don't think he reads the Old Testament at all, but that's like, from my understanding, he mentioned reading the Bible every day, but I'm pretty sure he just means New Testament, not Old Testament.
Okay, so I'll just say that it's easy to say that, well, it might be in one of their books and they're just not following it, but usually the way to test it is to see how they actually acted in the past. So if Jesus said, eat the flesh and drink the blood, then if we can see that they did that, then we can also see that it's obviously followed. So it's not just scripture; they're actually practicing it in reality. And
Sorry, go ahead.
and they did prosecute Jews for thousands of years. The Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church, even some Protestant churches in Europe, they all prosecuted Jews. So they all believed in the blood guilt of the Jews. We might not agree with it. They do. They followed it.
Right. I would phrase it slightly differently, or I would suggest a different perspective. I think Christians, as well as Muslims to a lesser extent historically, have had various reasons to prosecute Jews, right? And often the reasons weren't theological, the reasons were economical, and the theology was the excuse, the way to sell it, right? So the ultimate reason, the base reason, is the same reason that I don't know, Chinese are prosecuted in Malaysia or whatever, the middleman minority
Right. So
perspective, and then you dress that, you sell that to the masses through a religious quote.
right, which at that point it just doesn't matter because that's exactly my point.
Okay.
Tucker and Candace, they're not selling it through how successful we are. They're selling it through theological arguments.
I will also say that as an atheist, referring to you, Dad, it's hard for you. It's hard for me too to understand the degree to which people take their religion seriously and genuinely believe it. And if you have a storybook that's meant to be a description of the reality, and the villains of the story, like there's the term monster of the week. Um,
No.
it's like a TV show trope where a season could have an overarching villain, but every episode has its little villains.
Right.
It's encompassed within that episode, and the so every story of Jesus, not every, but like most of the stories of the adventures of Jesus, if you think about it in episode sense, each time the Jews are the villains. Of
The
course,
monster of the week. Right?
yes, yes. Each time they're the monster of the week. What are they called?
The Pharisees.
The Pharisees, yes.
Right.
So the Pharisees come and they try to trick Jesus into being rebellious against the Romans to make sure that he gets in trouble. So that's like, and he defeated them this week by being clever in that manner or this manner.
Right, by quoting this rabbi and basically going through the halacha versus going through the Torah.
Yeah,
Stuff like that.
and then the overarching villain at the end gets him, which is against the Pharisees. We take his blood on our. Now, I'm just giving that as a perspective. I genuinely tend to be very generous and especially Protestant Christianity, and I do not agree with Omer's level of vigor in which he judges them. But I will. I do think you can have that perspective realistically as someone who genuinely believes in the theology.
Right.
Right.
So I feel like I have to defend myself now. So I'll just say that my introduction should have said that Christians are sweet, loving, people. In their own lives, they're usually just sweet, nice people. They really don't think about Jews in that specific way. I'm specifically talking about the church, and I'm talking about the theological realm and argumentation, and not about specific Christians. I'm not talking about Catholics or this specific Catholic or that specific. I'm talking about Tucker. I'm talking about Candace and how their religion affects them. And so Christians in general are sweet people. I'll also respond to another thing that you said, which is, well, okay, so basically Christians have a very theological way of saying things, but they do have obviously ulterior motives. So going back to what you said, Aran, is
Yes.
Wait. Hold that thought. I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We know Candace, sede vacante, Catholic, right?
SSPX.
Okay. And what is Tucker's stream?
So he used to be an Anglican, but now he doesn't claim any sect, I guess.
So-
Yeah.
So Catholic.
Yeah, the comment that I wanted to make actually, I'm not going to argue about Candice. She's not a person that I listen to or care much about, and that doesn't mean that So I'm not going to knowledgeably talk about her. I have listened to Tucker talk in general and mostly about, and I heard Tucker talk about Israel a lot. The other very obviously Christian person that I heard talk about Israel a lot is Mike Huckabee. And I can tell you that Mike Huckabee invokes his theology much, much more, or actually just positively invokes his theology to explain his attitude toward Israel, whereas Tucker Carlson, to the extent that he invokes his theology, it's just by talking about his theology gives him certain moral values that he believes recent actions by Israel are violating. But I have never heard Tucker mention his attitude towards Jews in general, only his attitude toward recent Israeli actions.
Right. Well,
Whereas Mike Huckabee has a very, very theologically driven love of Jews.
I mean,
Right.
just to correct the record here, it could be completely flipped around. You could have a completely theological anti-Semite and a completely Zionist, like moral person. I think that it's just ways of justifying their bias or creating their bias. I think Mike Huckabee really is biased towards Israel because of his theology, and I think that Tucker ends up being biased against. I fixed it. I know. I saw it. I
You
fixed it.
faded it. No, yes, but so if you could repeat it.
What did I miss?
You said
Okay.
yes. Could you say again?
I said that the Mike Huckabee is biased toward Israel because of his theology, and Tucker
Yeah.
is biased against Israel, probably because of his theology.
Right. So that's where I would disagree, or to be perfectly fair and accurate, I would say that I personally have listened to Tucker talk about Israel often, and I have never heard him mention his theology in this context, other than to say, my theology says that killing innocents is wrong and Israel is killing innocents, therefore Israel is wrong.
Wait,
right? But I'm sure that's not what you mean.
Okay,
when you
okay.
say it.
Let me
There's
just
a lot of
bring up
topics
some-
that are coming up, so I need to respond to a few things and also just correct the record on some stuff.
Okay. Okay, you go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, Candace and Tucker and Mike Huckabee obviously have ulterior motives. That's fine. They all have their own motives. I think so. Personally, I think that Tucker has a political motive behind it that I'm not going to specify because it's not related to the episode. And Candace has a self-grandeur type of like delusions
It's
that
great.
I think that she satisfies to it. And so they do have ulterior motives, that's fine, but the whole crux of my argument is that the reasoning, which is the way that they convey their argument, is Christian.
Okay.
So that's one.
Okay.
They might have ulterior motives, that's fine. I agree with that. Now, Mike Huckabee does talk about specifically being a Protestant Christian, and how that affects his views in general, politically, whatever, which is fine. But I'll just add that very specific point because Protestant did not used to like us. They used to prosecute us as well, meaning that they actually burned us at the stake. So
Yeah.
and
When?
sometimes in history, the Catholic Church even kind of like protected Jews from Protestants.
I mean, they
but I
protected
will
the
say,
Jews from Catholics. But when did Protestants burn Jews at the stake?
again, I'm not going to go into the history. I'm going to just talk about the theological points because
Except,
I have a bunch of them. So Mike
definitely
Huckabee,
Martin Luther hated Jews, so that's enough.
right, and he's just one of the church fathers, but that's very true. But Protestants really changed when John Darby came into the picture. So John Darby, and if you'll notice in Candace's shows, she talks a lot about
Yeah, she doesn't like
John
it.
Darby. Right. She also talks about the Schofield Bible, which is also a Protestant version of Christianity. And even Tucker talks about it. Tucker talks about Christian Zionists, which are basically John Darby Christians. So that's to that. So the Jew-loving Christian would usually be a John Darby or a Cyrus Schofield Bible-reading Christian. It's not. It's the anomaly. It's not the usual way that a Christian would believe in Christianity. It's definitely an anomaly, and especially throughout history. So that's that. Now Tucker does specifically, and I'm commenting on what you said, Aaron, which is Tucker claims that Trump is the Antichrist. He did say that. He later denied that he said that. But that's another way of invoking theological arguments to prove his point,
Well-
which is Trump is evil.
Can I add to that one moment? Because
Yeah.
Tucker said that he hates Christian Zionists. He considered that a horrible heresy. He really, really hates them. There are other
Right.
people who also don't agree with his theology, but he doesn't hate them as much. He only hates Christian Zionists very much.
So
Right, but I've never heard Tucker say that he hates Jews. Has anybody heard Tucker say that he hates Jews?
No, he doesn't.
They
say
never
it.
say
He's
that. That's the
smart.
whole point.
Yeah. Candace never
Okay.
said it either, but she does.
Okay. Okay. All right. So what I would really appreciate, Omer, I'll let you carry on at your own pace, but at some point in the next 40 minutes,
Yeah.
I would really appreciate finding out how do you know that Tucker Carlson A hates Jews, which I never heard him say, and B that he hates Jews because of his religion rather than anything else. Or that he actually, sorry, that he sells his hatred of Jews, that he promotes his hatred of Jews through religious arguments. Because I think that's what you're saying.
I don't want to. Okay, Omar, maybe I wasn't here for that one section, but I will say that I've yet to hear you state specific theological claims that Christianity makes that are anti-Jew, except for the
Killing
story
Jesus.
indicating that
Killing God.
we take it on ourselves and our blood or whatever. So I would like to hear more statements about that because I don't know that much about it.
Right. Okay. So I'll just add another point to Candace being SSPX Catholic. That's one version of Catholicism. The Pope and the Catholic Church, they do not hold to their beliefs, meaning they're heretics to the Catholic Church. I don't know if they'll use that specific word, but they basically have no salvation. Okay, and Candice, she's now a Catholic, but she used to be a Calvinist. A Calvinist is, or one of their big major differences between between the other different Christian denominations is that Calvinists hold that children, Christian children, or just children in general, are pre-selected to be saved. Meaning, it's not that you can just flip on a dime and be saved by Christ. They believe that history is already written, and it's already written somewhere in heaven that this specific baby is gonna be saved by Jesus because he put his faith in him. So they're basically we can call them the people that believe in the chosenness of certain people, meaning you're chosen from birth to be saved.
Moral determinism.
Okay.
Right, exactly.
Predestination.
In non-theological terms, right. Um, okay, now another claim that Tucker makes is that Israel is not the real Israel. And he takes
Israel is not the biblical. No, I think what he's saying is Israel is not the biblical Israel. So the Israel in the Bible, in his theology, is different than the state of Israel.
Okay,
Not that it's
so-
not the real, but it's not the same, right?
Right. So what you're not picking on is the nuances of his theological argument because you're not coming from that world. So what he's basically saying, he's restating the argument of Paul from Romans. He's saying, so you can look up Romans 9:6, and he's basically saying the real Israel, the true Israel, is the Israel of the Spirit. They're the seed of Abraham, they're the seed of Sarah, they're the seed of Jacob, Israel. So the whole theological argument in Romans, which is an epistle, it's a letter to the Romans, to people that are non-Jews, is that you can also be a part and take a part of in the covenant of God with the Jews, because the Jews are not the real Jews. They're just a placeholder to be saved in the future. It's called progressive revelation, meaning God reveals his plan of salvation step by step by step in history. So the Jews might have held at one point the true religion, but then once Christ came and they rejected him, now they're no longer a part of Israel. Now it's very obvious why it's stupid, because if that's true, then Muhammad is the real prophet. Or if you go later on, then the Mormons are the real prophet, and then whatever.
Well, everybody has that.
Smith is
I
the-
just want, for the audience who doesn't remember Romans 9:6, because some people just,
Go
forgot
ahead.
their Bible. I
Please.
think the relevant section, as far as I can tell, is for not all who are descended from Israel are Israel, or not all those who are born into the nation of Israel are truly members of God's people. In other words, what he's saying is that the Israel, in the sense of the people of God's people, if you will, that just because you were born a Jew doesn't automatically make you a member of God's people. Since Christ came in, now in order to be part of God's people, you have to accept Christ.
Right.
That's how I interpret it. You can tell me if you think for not they are not all Israel who are of Israel. So he's basically in this sentence cutting the link between the theologically meaningful the theologically meaningful term Israel, as in God's people, and the genetic line or cultural line that goes through the Jews. He's saying those are not the same thing, and so modern Jews are not God's people. God's people are whoever accepts Christ, or something along those lines.
Right. So I'm just going to say that in general because it's going to make it more obvious. But Paul, in general, he uses the term Israel or Jews in two specific ways. Meaning, one is the chosenness to be saved, and the other is the seed of Jacob, meaning us, Jews.
Right.
So he
Genetic.
does conflate the two terms, but that's on purpose. And later on, so your interpretation is completely right because, I mean, you basically read the right verse, and that's a right interpretation of it. But it's not for us to decide what's the interpretation, it's for actually the church fathers. So when you talk to a Christian, they're not going to tell you what they think about the text. That's a big part of the Reformation, actually. But they're going to tell you the interpretation of the text that the church fathers held. Church fathers like Constantine, Augustine, who else? There's a bunch of them. And they all are venerated. Venerated meaning they're being prayed to by Christians. Now, what Christians pray to them? 95% of the Christian world, meaning the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church, the Eastern and the Western Orthodox churches. And there are 95% of Christians. Protestants are a very, very, very small minority in the world.
Yeah, but they're
especially
outsizely successful. They're the ones who are important.
right, because they're in the U.S. and it's because most of them blessed Israel. That's in my opinion, or that's the
I'd like to
theological
correct.
view.
It's not because they're in the U.S. The U.S. is important because they're there.
I agree with that.
Right, right. So what you're basically saying is the theological argument behind it would be they blessed Israel just like it said in Exodus and in Leviticus and in Genesis, and hence they're being a part of the blessing.
I disagree with that, but I understand you're suggesting a theological reason. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it's
I
the work
disagree with
ethic,
that.
but yeah, yeah.
It's not just the work ethic. It's the willingness to interpret God in a pluralistic way, and the learning how to read and think on your own. It's all of these things that come from the Protestant tradition.
Decentralized church, important.
Okay, so now because I mentioned the church fathers, what do the church fathers hold about Israel? And that's what's important here because I gave Romans 9:6. So that gave us his interpretation. Now we're getting the church fathers' interpretation. The church fathers' interpretation is that Israel was substituted, replaced, you can say, into a new covenant. Meaning, those people hold that Israel cannot be reinstated anymore. They're actually, the Jews are actually a proof of Jesus being the God-man that he claimed he was. Now, I didn't send you this link, but there is a little clip of Nick Fuentes specifically talking about how it is prophesied that if the Jews don't believe in the Messiah, then their temple will be destroyed. Now, obviously, it's not written anywhere in our texts. It's not even written in their texts, because some of their texts, or most of their texts, are actually before the year 70, especially by Paul and his theology. They're all written in the 50s. So it's all a tradition that's outside of the New Testament that says that the Messiah will be killed, and hence the Jews are going to reject him and are going to be taken away from modern day Israel, Judah back then. So that's a big Christian tradition in the Catholic Church that states that Israel was replaced. We are now under a new covenant, and it is actually a proof that Israel was not selected. It was actually the Gentiles. They were grafted in, and they're the new olive branch. Now, if you know even a perfunctory level of Bible, of the Hebrew Bible, you would know that a lot of the prophecies are not about Israel being taken away. They're actually about Israel being taken in, an ingathering of the exiles, and a temple being built, not a temple being destroyed. And the temple, actually, in the Hebrew Bible, we have the measurements. We have the measurements of the poles, and we have the measurements of the windows. So how would they even respond to that? So their religious claim is that, well, Jesus is our temple. We don't need a third temple. He's our temple, and the measurements, yeah, that's fine that it's there, but we now have a new covenant.
Okay, one second. I think there's a lot of information that's missing here, and let me know if I'm mistaking. I'm trying to piece together some things. I'm not that familiar with the theology, but so when the Messiah comes, so the claim is when the Messiah comes, by our tradition, by the Jewish tradition, he will come after we build the third temple.
No. He's supposed to come.
I
and
thought you
build
had
it.
another thing to say. No.
He's coming and
But
building.
why are the measurements of the temple important? That's what I'm asking.
Oh, because, okay, so it's just like when you have a prophecy that says something,
Yeah,
the
what's the prophecy?
the more specific it is, the better you can make a claim of how falsifiable it is. Because if the measurements are wrong, then it's not the thing.
Right. So you okay, but okay. So there was a prophecy in the Hebrew Bible that talks about this, the third temple.
Right.
Okay, and the third temple is a physical building with specific descriptions by our standards.
On Mount Zion. Yeah.
Okay, but the Christians believe that Jesus himself was the third temple.
Right.
That's a theological claim.
Right.
And it is, and they used the fact that Israel was banished from the land of current day Israel, from Canaan, and they used that as a theological proof that their religion is true, and that is counteracted by modern day Israel.
Right, because we rejected Jesus, we were ejected out of the land. Okay? It's not because we sinned, it's not because of what we would call sinat chinam, baseless hatred, which is what Jews believe. The second temple was destroyed because of it. And that's very true. I mean, Jews killed other Jews. Killed, not just like fought with them. They murdered other Jews. And that's why we lost the second temple.
And it's not because we were annoying and we wouldn't believe in the Roman gods and the Romans decided to scatter us.
Right. So Jesus allegedly died in, well, between the year 30 and 33 after his birth. Okay. The temple, the Jewish second temple, was destroyed in the year 70. So about 40 years later. So how do they adjudicate if that's the reason? They basically say for 40 years Jesus tried to reveal himself through Paul and through the writings and through the Gospels. The Jews rejected him, and they had 40 years to adopt his theology. They didn't. Hence, the temple was destroyed. Now, why can't the why can't the Christians accept the Jews of today being one, Israel, just the seed of Jacob, and second, Israel the state? So the church fathers held that as long as the temple is destroyed, that's actually the witness, that's the prime evidence of why the Jews are no longer chosen. They don't have a country, they don't have a temple, they don't have the artifacts, they don't have the menorah, the showbread table, they don't have any of the stuff. Actually, Rome took it away. Rome, meaning the Catholic Church. They took it away, and that's a symbolic way to represent how God had rejected them. So they're actually, the Catholic Church actually put the Jews in certain countries in a state called a witness people, and they basically were kind of like held as, I guess, second-class citizens that are supposed to be the proof of why Jesus is true and right.
I'd like to correct that. I think that, first of all, Jesus did say to keep the law, and this is all from Augustine of Hippo. Jesus said that they should keep the law. Therefore, the religious authorities in Europe should protect them. Also, Jews serve an important role because they're supposed to recognize Christ in his second coming. That's the way that you know that the second coming is here, because the Jews recognize Christ.
Okay, so I'll say two things. So one, it's not actually his second coming, it's actually his third coming.
Third coming, right.
Right. So I'll just correct that quickly. I'm saying that in a kind of like a joking way, but he came twice. He was born, he died, and he rose.
But we didn't recognize him, so he has to come again.
Now, right. So as far as recognizing him, that's actually not true. So in the book of Revelations, the whole prophecy is that we, the Jews, old Israel, the Israel that was ejected out of the promise, we will actually worship a false Messiah. They call him the Antichrist. That's why Tucker uses the word Antichrist, because he thinks that we, Jews, maybe even Israel, if you want to specifically narrow it down, but it's us, Jews, we worship the Antichrist according to the book of Revelations. That's why Trump is the Antichrist. And he is actually a representation of what we call Satan. And he is actually gonna bring forth the real Christ.
Wait.
Which is obviously Jesus.
No, you're talking, all these things that you're saying they believe, come from the book of Revelations, right?
Right.
Okay. Augustine of Hippo was working years later, like 300 years later, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know when the Revelations was written, but around 300 years later. And he seems to believe that when the Jews believe that someone is the Messiah, that will be the third coming of Jesus. But you're saying that Tucker
Okay.
doesn't agree with that.
Well, so did you say the Bishop of Hippo? Is that
Augustine of Hippo, yeah, Saint Augustine.
okay? So he might have held that. I honestly don't know if he held that, but I will say that that's not the orthodox view. That's not the view that's actually accepted. The view that's actually accepted is that the revelation is as written, meaning the Jews are they're going to bear witness. They're going to worship a false Messiah, an Antichrist, and then that's going to bring about the third coming of Jesus.
Okay, another thing is that my understanding, at least from things like the number of the beast, 666, that is
Right.
gematria for Neron Caesar. You obviously know this thing.
Which was who?
Emperor Nero. So
Right. So why is it there? What's the number of the beast? Why,
yeah,
why is
I
it
think
Nero?
that the meaning is that this whole thing already came to pass in Jews praising or worshiping the Antichrist, which is the Roman Empire, and thereby like submitting to the Roman Empire, and that was what Revelations was predicting.
Okay, so I'll quickly say that the book of Revelations is written anonymously, meaning it might have been written in a year that we don't really know.
It could
It's
be
obviously
Candace.
written.
We don't know. It could be Candace.
Right, but it's written way later on. I think around the year 200. That's at least the estimates of today, and it might have been written throughout a few ages, meaning different people wrote it in different times. But about the mark of the beast, 666, that's Neron, and in gematria, it means Caesar Nero, which is basically, well, he is the Roman ruler that killed a lot of the early church, and that's why it's there actually. So he wasn't a Christian; he was before the Roman Empire actually took over the Christian religion.
Yeah, the Christians don't
And
like it now.
Emperor Nero used to kill a lot of Christians.
Yes.
Guys, we have about 20 minutes left, and what I don't think, Omer, your interest in this question is exclusively about sort of history, right?
Right, it's not.
I think you will want to say that this has relevance to today's political scene in the United States and so on.
Right.
So would you make the connection? And again, I ask you to ignore to focus on Tucker, because he is one of the people that you brought up. He is one of the most popular spokespeople for a particular wing of the American right wing, and there's no doubt that he's very influential. So what he says and is obviously very relevant to contemporary American politics and the world in general. So what I would really appreciate is understanding how what evidence is there that Tucker uses his theology to attack Jews in general, because that's what we mean by anti-Semitism, as distinct from the policies of the State of Israel.
I'd like to.
Right, so-
let me take that
Yeah.
on a little bit before Omer tries. Lots of people talk about how anti-Semitism isn't anti-Zionism isn't anti-Semitism actually, and that's true. You could object to, but 99% of the time it is. We're some of the exceptions because we're supposedly anarchists. We don't believe states should exist at all. So specifically, the Jewish state shouldn't exist either. But when you single out Israel when you're anti-Zionist but not anarchist, or anti-Zionist but not any other ethno-nation, and there are several of them, but you only point at the Jewish one, that's anti-Semitism.
No. Hold on. Before you go on,
Yeah.
I don't know of anybody that objects to the existence of a Jewish state other than due to the fact that the existence of the Jewish states came at the expense of the people who lived in their land and their
Okay, so you're
descendants.
talking about
You might
history.
be wrong, you might disagree with
Is
it.
there any other country
So I'm
where
talk-
their history justifies the destruction of the state?
Is there any other country? Is there any other country that controls millions of people and makes a distinction about citizenship right based on
Yes.
religion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia.
Qatar.
Yeah.
Right. Saudi Arabia doesn't control
They do.
Saudi Arabia doesn't control millions of people who used to live in its land, right? It does control millions of people who arrived there as immigrants. But that's not what we're talking about
Wait,
here.
that-
right?
No, maybe.
The
I
relationship.
understand. I understand. There are issues with Israel,
Okay.
okay? But you could solve those.
And that no. It's not just that there are issues. Those issues are at the core of anti.
No,
and I
wait,
don't
wait,
know
wait.
of a single anti-Zionist
Wait.
who doesn't rationalize. Hold on. Let me just finish the sentence and then I'll stop. I don't know of any anti-Zionist, right, who doesn't rationalize his anti-Zionism by the perception, and you can disagree with that, but by the perception that Israelis dispossessed
Wait,
Palestinians.
I know. I understand that, okay? I also agree. I believe that most of the anti-Zionists believe that the reason that they're anti-Zionists is because Israel dispossessed the Palestinians. But that wouldn't be the first thing you go to. You don't think, oh, this state is doing something bad, let's completely dismantle it. No, you would say, okay, they need to behave better. There needs to be a peace agreement.
No.
This country also needs
No.
a separate
What
state.
you're saying is something else. What you're saying, the dominant anti-Zionist view, I'm not saying it's the exclusive, but the dominant anti-Zionist view is to say Israel should be like the United States. It should be like any other country in the world, which gives equal rights to everybody that lives within its that it.
Okay, you called it
controls.
any other country in
And
the world,
when
but
peop-
it's just the United States. But okay, keep going.
Sorry, there is no other country in the world that controls people that, not immigrants, but people that have always lived there. The United States and the Indians is a great case. The United States will be an analogy to Israel if Native Americans weren't American
wait.
citizens, right? That's the
Wait.
analogy. But Native Americans, at least for several decades now, are American
we're-
citizens. So if the Palestinians from the river to the sea were given Israeli citizenship, right? Then I think the arguments of most anti-Zionists would disappear.
Yes, I know that you'd think that, and you're kind of proving my point here. Okay, the point
Okay.
is,
Okay.
I know that you can rationalize your beliefs on property rights. Okay, on completely justifiable things. I'm saying that you believe those things because you have a bias, and you have this bias. You're a little bit anti-Semitic. I don't want to completely absolve you. But most people believe that a little bit because they're anti-Semitic.
Okay.
Okay. So
Agree to disagree. I'll welcome any evidence for that beyond your say so.
Okay.
Okay, so Eran, firstly, you said, well, a long time ago now, but you said that if I can connect how Tucker is anti-Semitic, stuff like that. That's not even my argument.
Okay.
Tucker is not
What is your argument?
anti-Semitic, and I really dislike the term anti-Semite. It's a term created by someone that didn't like us. The real term is Jew hatred. So let's call it what it is.
You do have
So I'm not going to say
Okay.
that Tucker, we're going to build it up. I'm not going to say now that Tucker is a Jew hater, but let's build it up together. So I think his
Okay.
theological view is one of a new Israel. He thinks that he is,
Okay.
and that's not me saying it. You can, again, now with the new mindset of the theological view, you can look at his videos a little different. But he holds that the church is the new Israel, hence there cannot be an old Israel. The old Israel, which is the state of Israel, cannot be. And he's not just saying it, he's actually holding to something that's way more traditional than the Anglican church that he used to belong to.
Omil, do you think
Yeah.
that if Israel renounces their biblical origins, if they say, okay, we're just Jews, okay, we're not the original Israel, it's just a state to protect this ethnic group, do you think that he'll let up? He'll stop hating Israel?
So it's outside of this theological conversation, but I personally hold that that's not going to make a difference.
Oh, really? Okay. Then, because the way I understood what your argument is about his theological view is that the problem with Israel is that it disproves the existence of the Israeli state, disproves the concept that that God abandoned the Jews because they rejected Christ. But if I'm saying that if the Jews like give up on that, if they say, okay, this isn't the state that our temple that God promised us. This is just a secular state. We don't care about. And he always says secular state, by the way. He uses that term adamantly. You don't think that'll help?
No, because we are actually not just the old covenant, we are actually the synagogue of Satan. We're actually a gathering of Satanists. That's not me saying it, that's Revelation. And that would be also a bunch of other Christians like Candice that follows the same line of logic.
And you're saying
And
that
she's not
according
making
to
it
the
up.
church-
It's in the
but,
Bible.
but sorry, did Tucker ever say that?
I honestly don't know, but I mean, I'm sure if I look up enough videos, I'm sure I'll find it. He uses that type of language.
Do you believe
So
that?
yeah, sorry.
Do you believe that evil people are capable of knowing that other people will judge them for their actions, and therefore trying to excuse them or suggest that that's not what they're doing? Are you aware of the fact? Are you familiar with the concept of lying?
I've never heard of it.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Just check it.
Let me bring it back. Let me bring it back because I think I'm going to
Okay.
specifically respond to you, Aran, because you have the most, I guess, resistance. So I'm just going to speak to your points. You brought about the fact that he might be, meaning Tucker, might be an anti-Zionist, but he doesn't hate Jews. He's just an anti-Zionist. Specifically, it's against Israel. Now, the church, it's not actually Tucker that's anti-Zionist. It's actually the church that's anti-Zionist. And the reason is that because it has to be anti-Zionist, because Israel cannot be recognized as a state. In fact, the Vatican Church only recognized Israel in, I think, 1992,
62.
somewhere in the 90s.
But it did recognize Israel, like what you're saying, 34 years ago. So the Catholic
Right.
Church does recognize
So
Israel.
about it took them around 60 almost years, 50 something years to do that. But,
Yes, because Israel dispossessed a lot of Christians.
well, no.
But the
They
question
had
that
to
I'm
go
asking-
through a lot of councils inside the church to decide that. It's
Right.
not. It's not about the
But my
prosecution of
question is-
Catholics in
I will
Israel.
also say it coincidentally occurred at the peak of Protestant power. 90s was peak American empire power.
Well, it was
But more
mostly it was
generally-
mostly at the time where peace talks were held, which is when Israel offered a lot of land to be taken away from it.
Does the Catholic
fair enough.
Church
But
routinely restrict recognition of states because of their crimes?
I'm sorry. Ask it again. I couldn't hear
I'm
that
asking
again.
if the Catholic Church commonly doesn't recognize states because they do something bad.
No.
well,
They
no.
usually recognize
The way
every
you're
country.
phrasing it is already biased. But does it not recognize organizations as states because of the crimes that they commit? But let's
Do
take
they?
a step back, right? In 1948, right, a lot of Muslim countries obviously did not recognize Israel. I don't know of many Christian countries that failed to recognize Israel. Set aside the Vatican, Okay, and I don't really know the exact details. I do know that over 30 years ago, it did recognize Israel, and the Pope, visited Israel and all of that. But you're saying Christianity, Christian institutions, Christian theology, as it is practiced in the second half of the 20th century and into the 21st century, not by isolated minority sects like SSPX, but as a dominant view within the Catholic, as a dominant view within Christianity, Israel cannot be recognized, and I cannot reconcile that with the foreign relations of
I have
Christian
an
countries.
answer to that
You know,
quickly. They're not Christian countries. They're secular countries that used to be Christian.
Well, the
well,
question is really
I
why.
don't recognize
Why
that.
can't they recognize Israel? And the reason is that the church fathers that lived 1700 years ago.
Who doesn't recognize Israel? Hold on, who? I mean, the Catholic Church, the Vatican recognized Israel in the early 90s. And so, other than that, right, which Christian organizations, set aside countries, so we're saying there are no Christian countries other than the Vatican, right? So let's accept that. There are, obviously countries that are dominated by Christianity, but let's set that aside. Which Christian organizations, if you will, or churches, do not recognize Israel?
So a lot of the Eastern Orthodox churches are like that. A lot
Okay.
of Catholic, again, heresies in the Catholic Church, like the SSPX. I think it's also common in other societies of saints. The reason why the big split happened was there was this ecumenical council held in, I think, 1964 at the Vatican, and it basically gave Jews, after obviously almost well over 1900 years, it gave the Jews the status of not being at fault for Jesus's murder.
I think it was
for God's
62,
murder.
but yeah, that's where the sede vacante, the SSPX split off.
That's where the big split happened, that's right. And obviously, a lot of splits occurred since then. But that's very fundamental because they used to hold big gatherings in Good Friday, for example, and they used to bring a Jew into the church and beat him down. And that stopped in 1962. So basically, they kind of changed their views, and obviously, they're still evolving and developing. But you see a lot more splits in the Catholic Church since then, because the Church Fathers held that Israel cannot be reinstated. Israel cannot be a country. If it is, that means that Jesus was not a prophet, he was not the Son of God, and he was not a God man.
Okay, wait, I'd like to
Right. Now,
start
yeah.
folding this in because I feel like we didn't get much into this, mostly because I spent half the time fixing my volume, but now I have it fixed, and I feel also that I wasn't exactly prepared for what you were going to say, and I think that you weren't exactly prepared for the arguments against it. So I suggest that if nothing interesting happens in Iran in this coming week, we can start a new episode where we're more ready for this conversation.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, I hopefully gave you a framework to better look at commentaries on the right, because that's basically where I came to it from. I came to it because I saw a religious debate between Nick Fuentes and some Jew. I don't even know who the Jew is.
Rabbi Shmuley. It's
But
always
Nick
Rabbi
Fuentes was
Shmuley.
really so Nick Fuentes was really antagonistic in his antics. He was really going against not just the theological argument. He was really against the historical argument, and that just like really hit me as a Jew. He was like really fervent about how they stole everything from us, and that was just so apparently evil. He basically paraded the fact that they took away our menorah, which is fine.
Yeah,
We can
I
make
saw
another
that
one,
video
but
right
why
today.
are you so proud of it?
I saw the Ishai Fleischer answer to that one today. It was pretty good.
Right. No. So he actually did that. He keeps doing that for a long time now. But
Yeah, he thinks that we're fighting, but we're just not listening very much.
and that's
Right.
not just him.
Let-
That's
let-
the Catholic Church that he holds.
Probably. But I think my issue is this Revelations versus Augustine of Hippo, which I will research more before our next conversation.
Please.
Right. Let me try, if I
Yeah.
might. I want to try to summarize things as I understand them.
Yeah.
And that will be my last word. I'll let you say a last word, but then to the extent that you think I'm wrong, I would welcome offline because we'll need to add this. If we can continue this or at least prepare it for next week via the chat. What as I see it, where I agree is that Tucker rejects the theological continuity between Israel as God's chosen people with all the promises and the covenant and everything else, and the modern state of Israel or even the modern Jewish people. I think that I can agree. I think that's what part of what you're saying, and I think I can agree with that. I think what you're saying is something stronger than that. You're saying that a lot of Christians and with deep theological roots feel that the existence of the state or the legitimacy of the state of Israel is detrimental to their theology because their theology is premised that the supremacy of Christ is premised on the destruction of Jewish presence or Jewish sovereignty in the land, and the reemergence of the state of Israel is therefore an anathema, is therefore something that goes against their theology, and that I'm not going to argue that. That's something
I
that I'm
just
going to
got
need to
mind
study
blown
further.
because
And
I don't know if you guys are a member of this group, but I'm in a Signal group, okay? And there's this really nice guy. I really like him generally. But some Jew there made a mocking post about how Jesus didn't fulfill any of the prophecies. And he came out with Jesus completely destroyed you. He ruined your nation. Hopefully one day you will repent or something like that. And that really bothered me because it seemed very unchristlike. But I guess what you're saying kind of explains it, because to them that's what's important, that Israel was destroyed.
Yeah.
right. So that's the second point. And then the third point, if I understand correctly, is you're saying Tucker Carlson, not some fringe Christian extremists, but Tucker Carlson, who we can all agree is in the mainstream of an important wing within within the American right wing. So Tucker Carlson's rejection of Israel and maybe even his criticism of Israeli policies is motivated by not just by number one. So it's not it's not just that he thinks Christian Zionists are theologically wrong, which is point number one, but he also thinks that the state of Israel is anathema because of point number
I'd
two.
also like to.
Did I get that right?
It sounds like you're right, but
Okay.
I'd like to also mention
Okay.
what you mentioned. Like you said, that Tucker rejects the Jewish people as the continuation of the Israel, the Jews of the Bible, right?
Right.
Isn't that anti-Semitic?
Of the Jews of the Bible, not the flesh and blood Jews of the Bible, sorry, but as God's people with whom God had a
So
covenant.
genetically
So
and also
God's covenant-
theologically. Go on.
Theologically,
And
yes.
also
The important
genetically.
thing
So
is
genetically
theologically.
and theologically, and I can expand on it, but go ahead, Boy.
He did make that argument genetically,
Okay.
I remember.
Who the founders of this country were mostly secular. Some of them were avowed atheists. They were not praying for the peace of Jerusalem. They weren't praying at all because they didn't believe in God. There's no genealogy linking their families to the people of this land 3,000 years ago. They're not.
Okay, guys. It sounds like we have lots of material for next week, but food is ready and I'm very hungry.
Excellent.
And I will look up more Tucker
Very
clips
good.
because obviously that's the sticking point. It's not necessarily Candace. We're all in agreement. But
Candace
then
is
Tucker.
retarded,
So I'm
that's
going
it.
to specifically go to Tucker.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. So we each have our homework. And I'm looking forward to
Great.
continuing next week. All right. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a good
Bye-bye.
week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.